Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide on this meditative practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. This week, we're going to explore contours, the layering of shapes to describe something more complex, three-dimensional, volumetric, a little bit organic, but that depends on how you want to take the exercise. Contours will build from just that first layer, sequentially over space with the time of our meditation, and reveal something formal, figural on the page. This technique of contouring or slicing a solid can often work well as a way of representing something complex and non-orthographic or rectilinear, something that can be lined up to a specific edge. It also leaves us a nice bit of room for interpretation, for seeing something new, and we'll begin to layer on top of the layering by bringing a little bit of contrast and density to one side, one edge, to give shape to that figure forming on the two-dimensional page. This is also an exercise in uncertainty, of mapping a space and trusting that something will emerge from it. In the case of the meditation, maybe nothing happens. Maybe it's just a bunch of lines. But as we work through it, your eyes, your hands, your imagination will start to work together to find a way to express out there on the paper, and we'll see what we can all bring into form. Go ahead and gather your supplies, establish your space, and let's draw together. We'll go ahead and get started. Let's see, a little scrap there. This one might be interesting. It's going to be a little meditation exploration of contours, but with no shape in mind to begin with. So we're just going to draw a bunch of layers over space and time, and there'll be roughly little flattened roundish shapes, and stacking them up until they start to look like something, a figure or form. In the warm-up, we'll kind of get a sense of it. I think just because of the way I'm set up, I'll kind of work bottom left to upper right to avoid smudging too much and have a comfortable flow, but whatever's your position, straight up and down, diagonal, anything should work. And if we start, the idea of a contour is kind of like cutting slices through an apple. The most bottom one would be ball or sphere, just a small little circle, partially squished circle there. And what we'll do is start adding ones of generally increasing or decreasing size. And at first, depending on the spacing, whether it's tight or a little more open or loose, it may just kind of look like a lot of interference, and that's where we'll kind of work through, trust, and let it develop. But over time, it may start to take on the appearance of something like a cone there or a basket. And as we draw and in the warm-up, getting used to it, we can start to play that these don't have to be perfect shapes. They can have wiggles to them. Contour is nice for describing something like the ground, the topography, changes either gradually or abruptly over time. And the exercise will just continue to work by layering that, playing with our perception of relationships between curves from before and where we might want it to go now. Things can always deviate or align as we build up these layers. Part of our practice is in that connection between the eye and the hand, and seeing but not seeing all of those lines colliding, overlapping with each other. As this thing twists and folds and emerges a little bit. And at any time we can do things like branch or split something off, have its own two shapes, continue on their own new paths. A new branch can extend out. There's a lot to play with, potentially. The spacing affects how quickly or slowly it looks like a figure. The tighter it is, the more dense and thick the form becomes, the looser, the more wobbly and wispy it may look. And they can become combined, dense on one side, loose on another, as something drifts towards disappearing. And we might end up with some weird figures like this. We might have multiple. We'll let the contours work through. And then on the way back, we can work in reverse, highlight one side or the other, and begin to get some suggestion of surface, something being in front or behind through dark or light. But that'll be the gist of the exercise. As you work along, you may start to see opportunity, but as that takes time to unfold, just drawing another shape on top of another shape on top of another shape is where we'll spend our practice. Preparing that fresh open sheet, preparing the freshening and opening of the mind. A few breaths, just at a nice, thick pace, not too deep, not too shallow. Waking up the abdomen, waking up the torso, waking up the connections between the ribs as everything expands and contracts, encouraging awareness of all of those connections, moving a little bit side to side, up and down, finding soft, thick kind of wiggle to things, everything waking up, becoming part of your presence here. We'll take a couple solid, deep breaths together, breathing in and filling out the space, and relaxing into its exhalation. Filling up and taking a little more space established for the self, and sinking into the presence of just this moment, this short time. Finding your starting place and a bit of direction, and beginning with that small location of the first layer contoured. We'll just get into the drawing, continuing from the warm-up, starting to find our cadence of spacing, trying to let the eyes maybe soften a bit, to not see too hard or look for too much clarity, to just take in the space around where we're working. Let the pen or pencil track what's already there, moving along one edge, finding its own expression as it leaves the guiding edge and finds form around another side. Becoming comfortable in that density and complexity. Letting go of any tightness of uncertainty. Letting breathe out desire to see the form. It will come when the lines collect enough. Beginning to enter that varied repetition, the gradual change over space and time, as a place to breathe into action. Taking a breath in as you find the location to start the next journey. and a breath out as you complete a cycle around one cut through some object. In to begin, and a completion coming to the end of the cycle. The first view may take some alignment to find the pacing on the page, to be comfortable with the pacing of taking a slight reprieve between each action, to breathe in and center, to exhale with movement coming together, the breath and expression of the action you take on the page. And in entering that space of cycles, contours cutting through the shape, you can use the breath to feel inwards to the body. If you're able, perhaps bringing the hand to the lower sternum, feeling the expansion and contraction, or just letting the mind's presence be there as the diaphragm expands and contracts. Noticing it fully separated a little bit from the shapes taking form on the paper, the breath becoming more of the guide, the hand and the pen or pencil following along its cues. Deepening our connection inward with the body, noticing it both on the inside as we feel our ribs and lungs expand, but noticing it through a connection to the outside, perhaps the subtle shifting of clothes over the skin, or through the fingertips, the change in shape and position. Becoming a part of that action of the breath, aware of its impact, aware of its presence. The breath so kindly happening without our thinking much of the time. The body keeping it going, adapting it to situation at hand, and giving us a space or a platform for exercising that tenuous relationship between control and fate. One breath will come after the other. The nervous system will request that. But we can give it a little directionality. One contour comes after another. We guide its motion, perhaps beginning to see things forming on the page. Perhaps still just following one leading edge, one trailing edge, some relationship forming between the two. And with the breath fully centered and ingrained, our body rich and full of oxygen, the mind active, engaged in the paper, aware of the tool, the technique, aware of potential forms or actions, motion, emerging in that space of the paper. Aware of the next moment being another round, slicing through the air, slicing through the emptiness of the page, slicing through something unseen, an imagined kind of X-ray, revealing, scanning something there on the paper. And as you draw new moments, each one reflection of its neighbor, its past, and a speculation of somewhere to come. We can use the imagination outward as another tool in that practice of mindfulness. What do you see? What images flutter through the mind? There may become a coalescing. The shape started perhaps finding something from your experience. There may be a jumble. The only differentiation of form or figure, the consistency brought in by that breath, by the practice of layering the contours. There may be something else. The things that drift to the mind when we give it a little space. Tools like the breath, tools like this pencil or pen in your hand, tools like the focused attention, mind, eye, instrument, medium coming together. Occupy parts of the mind. Quiet the parts in the background as this extreme attention is required. To keep all of the layers engaged. We'll spend a couple of more minutes working in this mode, slicing, carving, contouring, letting that nice fluid space moving the pen or pencil gradually expand off forever, or come back around, closing in a little bit on itself, looking for a little completion. Perhaps taking your last few cycles of breath in this mode, finding a balance for yourself, whether that's one cycle per contour, breathing in with one action, and out with another, to have engagement with speed. Wherever you are, coming towards a close, we can always return or continue with the contours, but to bring some more layers of visual engagement and depth, we begin highlighting the contours present. I'm going to switch to a little heavier pen, but should be fine with any instrument working there. And as we started from one direction to another, we'll work back in return, revisiting parts of our contours, finding one side in front of the other. The first few I have here are solo, full shapes tacked on top, but then they begin to sit underneath and choosing which side to draw, as one shape, through its heaviness, begins to disappear a little bit behind the one after it. Some of the outer edges will thicken, and the exercise now becomes about gradually seeing in that space, tracking an edge or a line, finding the direction to draw that lets you see what's coming, perhaps, noticing your engagement, trying to keep in mind what you see distinguished front and back. We have guides, the direction the contour extends, maybe helps see forward or backwards. If you switch to something thicker, the overlapping areas can fill in a little bit with more ink or material, emphasizing tight turns, thickening the outer profile here and there to express volume from line. And if it becomes dense to the eyes, cluttered, feel free at any time to take a pause. So maybe close the eyes for a minute. They're doing a lot of work sorting foreground and background, above and below. Let them rest for a moment. And as they open again, clearer, bring our attention to the eyes, to the vision. What do you notice about the way the mind processes the field of complexity? Is something emerging clearly? Or is it a darting challenge to resolve one layer through the overlaps and intersections? Take your time. If it moves fast and smooth, lean in and move fast and smooth. If things are complex and slow, breathe with them. There's no rush to the end. All the lines are already there. Just revisiting them. Changing their expression, presence. Remapping their intensity. Perhaps even making a few new ones as the pen or pencil may slip, as lines may merge together. But the contours guide us. They overlap a similar direction. And we'll use this time to take the last 5 minutes and just quietly draw into this space, guided only by what we made before. We all share the same time and space here in terms of the minutes, the seconds. Some of us may have many, many, many lines, others just a few, enough to start to see a shape. Perhaps we'll let this exercise kind of end on its own, more organic accord. If you have the time and desire to keep going, keep drawing till the lines are completed in the journey, feel free. If you've reached the end, letting the eyes see, take in the form, revealing 3D volume from just a bunch of 2D shapes stacked next to each other. If you have to go, take one breath and set the pen or pencil down. Wherever it may be, there's always an opportunity to return, or to let it be in action, in the process of emerging. Finishing is not required. And as you're ready, letting your drawing come to the close, if you have to go at 9:30, it's that time. I think I'll draw just a few more lines. So I'd like to see it out. But wherever you are, thank you for joining in. As we enter into the summer schedule, things should stay pretty much the same. Welcome back to your space, to that reintegration, opening up again to what's around us. Time focused in on that drawing, the paper, the instrument, the form taking shape. Released onto the page there, expressed fully, a moment captured, and moving on, extending back out into the space around us, using those enhanced senses to take in a little bit more mindfully the day that will unfold before us, and maybe bring a little of this meditation on uncertainty, on seeing something develop over time, to guiding the layers that make a whole, can take itself out into your everyday, can extend out into what you do for the day, whether that's a creative practice, managing something in an office, or just enjoying some time with yourself as you relax after a nice meditation. We do these exercises weekly, and so new episodes come up on YouTube on Wednesday mornings. You can subscribe to see them every week, or just tune in occasionally when you need a little break and a little guidance on something to draw and have a little fun with a little creative mindfulness. But if you liked the video, please share with your friends, give it a thumbs up below, and let me know in the comments what you found interesting in your own practice or ideas of something we could incorporate. I like the challenge of trying to engineer the exercise from a theme, a topic, or just an idea of a form on a paper. Wherever this exercise takes you, I hope you have a good day or evening, and draw well. Thank you. There's a power in the unknown, in not seeing what will come in the end, following a process, trusting that each layer, each added point, line, plane, whatever it may be, will coalesce into a novel or new experience, a new whole taking form on that paper. A pure act of creativity and speculation, something emerging out of nothing. And not every process goes this way, but from time to time to let ourselves occupy that space of emergence, that space of creating from just ourselves, our mindful connection to the space we occupy, the tools we use, the mediums we interact with, and see where it takes us and what we can find that might inspire further rounds of refinement, rigor, and exploration. Thank you for joining in the exercise. This is Brooks is Fun, signing off. Draw well.